AutoCAD 2011 material mapping. We're going to start by changing our working units, by typing in units, to architectural. We'll give it a position of 1/16 of an inch, 1/16 of an inch tolerance. Okay. We're going to draw a 4x8 piece of plywood, 3/4 inches thick. So we're going to draw a solid object. Shift at 4 foot, comma 8 foot, and we're going to give it a thickness of 0.75 an inch or 3/4 of an inch. Now, if you notice, there's our piece of plywood. We're also going to draw a quick image, a lot tinier than that, to demonstrate the material mapping. Okay, these two images, so our solid models are created. We're now going to bring up our solid material toolbar, where we have an array of different materials ranging from glass, ceramic, to masonry, aggregates, metals, anything you can possibly think of in the real world you can apply as a skin or surface to your solid models. In this particular example, we're going to use American cherry, and we're going to apply it to the 4x8 piece of plywood. Notice that it's very pixelated. So that's where the material mapping comes in. I'm sure there is a particular scale at which this surface or skin was created. I mean, it's basically a raster image, and we don't know, or at least I don't know, what the scale was, if it was a full-size photo or if it was a scaled-down photo of this material. So that's where material mapping comes in. Basically, it just scales down the skin of your material to make it more aesthetically pleasing or more to scale with the object that you're drawing. For this particular object, it's a 2D object, or at least the surface is, so we're going to do it with a planar material mapping tool. By selecting it, you'll notice that grips come up, and you select a grip and you stretch this material down to a scale that's much more aesthetically pleasing and more indicative of the size of the item that you are using. In this particular example, you'll notice the flooring looks a little more realistic than it did when it was pixelated. Dragging the same cherry wood to this smaller object, you'll notice again it is also very pixelated. I don't know if we can zoom in that far to get an accurate representation of it. We're going to try to material map this one as well, utilizing the planar material mapping tool. We're going to make this guy smaller as well, but as you can see, it's too far in to zoom in without going through the object, so it becomes tricky. But delicately you can get it. Enter. Now if we zoom in, you'll notice it's less pixelated, more along the lines of what we're looking for. Our example is best demonstrated with a larger 4x8. I think the smaller you go, you're going to realize that you're getting into the resolution that the image was, you're getting into the threshold of the resolution that the image was initially captured at. So the smaller, you can only make this thing a certain size, whereas the smaller you make it, the more pixelated you're going to get it, irregardless of whether or not you map the material. So stick with larger size models for certain textures. I'm going to copy this just to get a demonstration of another material, and we're going to pull up some, let's pull up some fabric. No, I don't like fabric. Let's do some tile, some stone tile. This diamond pattern, again pixelated to a point where you can see the grout between the tiles. So we're going to material map it again with planar mapping tool. Bring up our grips and get it to a point where it's more aesthetically pleasing, more realistic. I believe that level of detail is what we're looking for. So now you have these two flooring solid models, if you will, and we could make one of these our wall. Rotate 3 dimensions. We'll turn this tile floor. You know what? For my little world here, as Bob Ross would say, I'm going to make this a wall. I'm going to rotate it about the x-axis. Actually, I'm going to rotate it about the y-axis. And I'm going to rotate it about the y. Point there. I'm going to rotate it 90 degrees on the y, and then move it up to be a wall. I'm going to get into a little more some solid modeling techniques with some shadows and some lighting and some rendering presets that I find to be a useful tool when rendering or creating your little model or scene, if you will. Going back to the home toolbar, we're going to just select a simple object, a box. We're going to find a spot for it. We're going to give it some height. This could be a mirror. This could be anything you want it to be. Maybe you draw a cone. Give it some height. Again, just arbitrarily picking shapes to demonstrate the power of the rendering software that's built into AutoCAD. We're going to give these textures, these models some textures. Let's search for one here. We can give one, I'm looking for a mirror, because that one is pretty cool how it reflects the surface of the surrounding textures. But I can't find one, so I'm going to stick with the basics. Let's try something that has some luster to it. We're going to do some anodized aluminum. Let's do some polished brass and some more satin brass. Now, rendering this, you'll notice from the onset that without any lighting, the materials on the objects are pretty bland, and the shadows that are cast are pretty basic and not indicative of true sun direction. So what I like to do is I go back to the rendering toolbar, make some settings here, render quality. We're going to bring this up to be more of presentation type graphics. We're going to add some distant light. Allow distant lights, and quickly I'm going to change the view. I'm going to change the view to be more perspective. Our view is created, almost.